Hello, this is Tad's Jazz, and welcome back to my second part of my tavern build. We will follow the progress of me building the roof of the structure and then filling in some details. As you can see, I'm just doing the dock and I'm changing up it to oak slabs, oak stairs, and trying to replace the sort of checkered board pattern and kind of looking at the externals of the building. Filling the top floors to the white and everything. Since the last episode, I actually did a little bit of research, and my belief was the fact that the reason these buildings got bigger as you went up the building was because I thought this was for chamber pots, and that's how they relieved the chamber pots by throwing them out the window, and then these would then be thrown into the streets. However, since then, I've realised that this is actually called jettying, and this is basically when the ground floor would be put to the maximum limits of the plot, as you can see how I've designed it. Normally made out of stone, because this would mean that sitting in the ground it doesn't rot. And then the first floor would be made from wood and timbers, being a cheaper, and it could then cantilever out, and this would then provide some stability to those beams, but also add more internal floor space. So this jettying would allow each floor to go out bigger and bigger, and it wouldn't impede any of the ground floor street space, and also protect sort of the people walking underneath from it. So hopefully that's a quick little fun fact for you guys, where it kind of then shows you that back in the day they actually thought about internal floor space and how much impact it has on the value of the property. So we're flying over these buildings. You can see I've built the roof and I'm just trying to fill in the rest of it. You can see the little side houses next to it, but we'll fly closer and you can see that I've been filling in the walls of white wall, and these white wall elements would provide kind of this, I think it's called the wattle and daub, basically what they used to fill in with the wooden beams. And it kind of follows this sort of medieval look that I'm trying to get here, and then I might try and increase to the dock area that floats around it. You can see the ground floor, which is made from the stone plinth, and then this is basically following that sort of medieval look to it, but I've added a little bit more details in just to make it a little bit interesting. And then I've basically cantilevered each floor out, and now I'm adding little, kind of in the olden days on medieval buildings you had those sort of cross timber bracing that added support, but I've just done it as external fencing. And then the top floor is kind of trying to do the simple look where you've got the wool, you can see internally the beams, and it's just kind of giving you that sort of idea that the ground floor is this solid stone structure, whilst on top the two floors are kind of this lightweight building that increases. So on your survival builds, if you were to build something like this, it means you could then start off with a small stone structure that protects you from mobs and creepers and everything, but then the first floor then cantilevers out. You can then put your little bedrooms in, or a living room space, and then the top floor could then be a larger space or just kind of a storage room. But flying inside, you can see how the beams kind of float through. I've put slabs in between so it kind of emphasizes those beams and the different textures in the floor. And then you kind of pan straight outside. You can see the little docking area, and this is kind of what I want to float around the edges, so if you were to walk across the dock you could see these kind of cantilevering structures out and about. You can see this level of detail. I've put kind of like an oak horizontal stripe around the building, and that kind of then contrasts that kind of the dark oak that sits above it. The top floor is kind of this larger structure, but with that lighter element of the white wool. You can see me in the background just cutting down all the oak trees, trying to get all the materials and that for this roof, so hopefully we could try and get this finished. As I wait, I basically start trying to work out what this dock is, filling it out with kind of oak and trying to make it sort of less checkerboardy, putting it out of oak materials, but then I possibly might change it up for birch wood in between the sort of these little gaps. This little trick I use is kind of using stairs in the ground because it means you can walk across it without falling in, but it adds that level of texture into the floorboards. Just working up the roof, you can see that I've done the dark oak that sits just on top of these columns, and then I've used the oak stairs between it just to kind of show that contrast in colour, and it kind of makes the dark oak feel as if it's kind of the structural frame to the building, and the oak elements just create this lightness to the build. Now we pan to the front and you can have a look at what the streetscape looks like. If I pull the dock all the way forwards to these different buildings that are all currently jettying, and all of the buildings cantilever on top of the walkway. Hopefully in the future I can add some sort of streetscape items and features just to kind of give it a little bit more activity. But it kind of gives you an idea of the 4 different buildings with the same principle, and hopefully I'll do another video where I then work up this dock and then possibly put some boat houses in, and maybe in the future do some sort of ship or boat sort of thing, just to give some sort of life and activity to this seafront. I'm not sure what this grey structure currently in front of us will be, but it was an old project I did, kind of reimagining my university project, but I may change this into some sort of warehousey thing or some sort of hall, just something that creates this sort of grandeur. But as you can see, I'm just mining out the sand in front of this building, that I'll basically continue this dock all the way around the building, adding some sort of kind of key promenade around, and kind of just adding some more detail to the area rather than it just being a beach and kind of a stone path. But as you can see, it's the 4 key buildings that sit on this promenade. Hopefully this dock will appear to the left, and then I can create some sort of medievalish builds that pass around it, and then in the back I'll try and maybe revamp the shops into some sort of similar medieval styled feel, and that way it can kind of introduce those key elements. And then my little castle there that's just appearing, which was probably one of my earlier builds on this world. And that is basically the build. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you quite enjoyed it, then please give me a like and a comment below, and I'm going to try and do a similar build in the future. Thank you and goodbye.